Hi there, that's my first YouTube video. I want to compare those two locks because I didn't find a lot of info, and they're also quite similar with those 3-digit locks and zip tie function. So I'm going a bit into depth into those two. So first thing you can notice when you open those things that the ABUS one is way more flexible. Maybe there's also less steel or less material on it compared to the Hiplok, which is a bit harder to bend. So when we're talking about thickness, I found out that the Hiplok is about 1 centimeter thicker, so we're about 4.5 centimeters versus 3.5 centimeters for the ABUS lock. Same goes for the width. We have again about 1 millimeter of difference between the two locks, where the Hiplok is a bit larger than the other one. And now about length, both claim to have 45 centimeters of effective length, of locking length. So you can compare that, measuring from the hole that will lock until the last zip clue. So we're exactly at 45 for the Hiplok, and when you look at the ABUS, it's somehow longer, so we're getting more like 47. So then in the end, it's all a question of, is this really usable locking length? You see that the ABUS has that bend in it, which seems probably in practice to maybe fill up some space in the end. If I both put them to the first notch, we see that the ABUS has a slightly bigger circumference, but the differences are really small. Something interesting about the ABUS is that you don't have that protruding thing. So it can be an advantage if you want to put it around a saddlebag or something, and then maybe fix it on like this for transport's sake, so you don't have that protruding part. Instead, if you have locked it against something, I guess it's more convenient to have those figures free, so you can open or lock your lock more easily. Then the whole locking mechanism seems a bit sturdier on the Hiplok, and looking at it from close, you can see, probably not very good at the camera, that there's 2 teeth holding the strap back, so it locks into 2 teeth. Instead, the ABUS one just locks on 1 tooth. So that's also a slight difference between. And another slight difference is that the numbers are pretty hard to turn. They're also close together here in the Hiplok, whereas in the ABUS they're really easy to turn. So to dial your code will be much easier with the ABUS one. Maybe with a little bit of use it will be easy also on the Hiplok. Another slight difference is to dial your own code. You have that little screw here, so whereas here it's an ordinary screw to open, we have a hex screw in there that's a bit hidden, so maybe there's less risk to accidentally change the code. So that's the main findings about those two locks. And now we're getting to the interesting part. Whereas, good, I'm not paid for that, so I didn't get those things for free, but I'm really curious about seeing what the steel core looks like in there. And we're gonna figure out also the resistance against a tool like this. So first the ABUS one, which seems way lighter. Oh, and I weighted them and they're about the same weight. So yeah, maybe you didn't really need a bolt cutter to open them. Yes, it worked, but yeah, it was quite some work on that. Now let's try it out for this one. Oh, that wasn't, oh, I didn't cut the, I only cut the plastic, so I didn't cut the steel. Anyway, try it out. Yeah, the steel is through too. Okay, now let's measure the thickness of that steel. So here we are at a 0.5 millimeter, pretty exactly at a 0.5 millimeter. Here it will be a bit harder. I have to undo that plastic thing to measure the width of the metal. So here's the final verdict. So this man unmantled that steel core and it figured out exactly 0.5 millimeters. And here we also have the steel core freed is also 0.5 millimeters of thickness. Only difference is this is around 1 millimeter larger, as I didn't cut really perpendicular to the stuff, so I can't measure it exactly, but it's about 9 millimeters, whereas here we're clearly more around 8 millimeters, pretty exact, precisely. So if you want the slightly minimal, more secure version, maybe you'd rather pick the Hiplok. If you rather want to go for a more flexible solution, I recommend the ABUS, and maybe also the handling is a bit easier with the ABUS one. So it's up to you. Disadvantage you can see is that here you have that steel thing around, where here it's directly plastic, so this can maybe scratch your frame or your rim, so maybe that could be also a bit more safer solution, more cleaner solution to really tie up your stuff against your high-priced carbon frame or carbon wheel. So that's all the roundup for those two. Hope you enjoy it and it can make you help to do the right decision. Goodbye.